Good morning, hello, good afternoon, wherever you are. Greetings to you all our viewers today. It's a new day, Saturday the 11th. We are glad to be here for our discussion panel with the Oasis the Oasis Specially Able Ministry in conjunction with Shining Stars Ministry. That's right. I'm the moderator for today. My name is Roland Eagle from Oasis. Especially Able Ministry. Today will be a great day of discussion. Before we get started, I want to encourage our viewers to be very active with your questions, your comments, and let's have fun today. All right. So with that said, we'll have a great discussion on disability and culture today. But I'm not the only one here today. I'm here with amazing, wonderful people that have been doing amazing work in this regard pertaining disability and culture and advancing or affirming the rights of people with disability. Today, one of our panelists, Mrs. Lina, will not be with us today, but we're giving a shout out to her. She is well, and we thank God so much for her life. All right. With that said, Dr. Cynthia, good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I am great. It's Saturday. How are you?
Good.
That's good. For the audience, for some that may not know you, that's our own Dr. Cynthia Pencil with Shining Stars, CEO of Shining Stars Ministry, and also a key pioneer, a driver of many good things in our Oasis, Specially Able Ministry from Christ Oasis Ministry. So again, good to see you, Dr. Cynthia.
Okay, so just want to say welcome to everybody who is watching us. A very good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. It's always a privilege and opportunity, to have this opportunity to expound on these issues that are at stake. And I believe that it's going to be a blessing to many of us. Most of you know me. As she mentioned, my name is Dr. Cynthia Pencil. I'm with Christ Oasis Ministries as executive pastor and also the director for Shining Stars Incorporated. I had my PhD in public health and also my master's in business administration as well. And I'm married with 4 beautiful young adults. There are no more children.
Amen to that.
4 beautiful young adults, and it's always a pleasure, and I believe that it's going to be a very, very good time. And this morning, before Pastor Roland will do the introduction, but we have a very special guest in our midst this morning, and I'll say something little, and she's going to introduce herself completely. So she is in the person of Pastor Joy Moore. I was privileged and invited to a women's retreat, I think 2 years back, and we connected. We were talking about so much. Little did I know then that I was going to start Shining Stars. I was going to start Oasis Specially Abled Ministry. But we had a very good conversation, because what happened was, in the course of my administration, I happened to mention that I have a child who had special needs. So after the service, we connected and we talked so much about what we can do to help people with special needs and all that. And when the Lord spoke to me to start the Shining Stars Incorporated and Oasis Specially Abled, she was the first person who came to my mind. So I called them like, Pastor Joy, look at this. We talked about what we have to do to help in this area, and God has put it on my heart to do this. So where do I start from? So she became a great mentor to me. She's like, you know what? Start from the church. It's all about education. It's all about enlightening the people. When the church can grasp it, then they can also take it to the world outside. And it was such a blessing. And so without much ado, I will hand over to Pastor Joy, and she will tell us more about herself. Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning.
Some places, maybe good afternoon, good evening. But it's a delight to be here with all of you, the viewers, and Pastor Roland has given me a privilege to be part of a ministry empowering the Specially Abled International. And I myself am a person with disability, had polio at 4 months, and when there was no hope, God gave hope because of my parents' prayers and trust in the Lord. And later, once I moved to United States, I went to college here and did my master's in disability and health. So that gave me good background on that. But I had already started working with people with disabilities and the organizations that work with people with disabilities. And plus my church and Bible background helped me to help the churches in whatever way I could. So here I am. We'll talk a little bit more about myself during the time with you. But it is a delight to be with you all. And thank you for allowing us to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Joy. I think we're also delighted to have you. You've been educating and helping churches, different organizations. I think you're going to help our viewers today. You're going to help us, help our audience today. So with that said, I will start with the first question. Some of these questions are coming directly from our audience, people who have questions when we are having our panels, and we carry some of those questions. So to all our viewers, if you have any question, you know, yours might be the next one. So please leave the comment, put your questions on the YouTube link. Thank you. So today we hear about disability and culture.
All these things come together. So when you talk about culture, it is really, really broad. And so whatever our culture is, that is what shapes us, our view of life. And so when it comes to the area of disability, definitely our culture is going to impact how we see disability. And so many cultures, different backgrounds, like Africans, Asians, Europeans, in our North American here, our cultures have shaped the way we view disability. No matter how you say it, our culture has had an impact on how we view disability. And one of the things, the primary area is our beliefs. Beliefs shape our concepts of life, whatever we believe in. So when it comes to disability, many people believe that people who have disability has been a result of either a sin a parent committed. This is especially with the Asian background and the African background. Some people believe that maybe your parents may have done something wrong, or your grandparents, or something that happened in the family. That is why some people end up having disability. Some people also believe that it may be as a result of things that, let's come to maybe a little bit of the European culture. I mean, during the time of pregnancy, maybe the medications you were taking, maybe you were on drugs, something that may have happened during the time of pregnancy. Others also believe that it is something they call karma, you know, that when you sin, it goes around and then it comes back. But most of it all has to do with our social view of life. Like, for instance, we all know that there is something that we call the body beauty, right? Body beauty. So we expect that a normal person or person who doesn't have a disability has to look a certain way. And so that is what we call body beauty. And society and culture has put in our mind that If you're a woman, you have to look a certain way. If you're a man, you have to look a certain way. So if you don't look that way and you don't conform to that pattern that society has expectations, then they view you as not normal. And so unfortunately, when you have a disability, maybe a physical one, because of the cultural mindset we have about body beauty, that becomes what? Something that is unacceptable. And society doesn't look kindly at you, which is rather sad. And then when it comes down to culture again, we have something called like our socioeconomic status. Culturally, we are all expected to be productive, you know. We are all expected to work, earn some income, be able to be independent and all that. And so when you have a disability, that maybe gives you a little bit of challenge in order to be able to do these things. Culturally, you are put on the back burner because it's like, okay, you cannot be that effective. You cannot be that efficient, you know. And then there are certain expectations, norms in society, like you have to go to school, be educated, you have to finish your education and get a job, and then from there marry, and then have children. So these are the cultural expectations that we all have, right? But when you have a disability, immediately, because of these expectations, you are put in a way that, can you really have an education? So when you have a disability, it's like it takes away from your education. If you have a disability, it takes away from your ability of being employed. When you have a disability, some people even wonder, oh, can you be married? Can you get a husband? Can you get a wife? You know, so these are the kind of cultural beliefs and background that have shaped us into viewing people with disability. And then it's like, oh, if she has a disability, can she have children? You know, so all the norms and all the expectation, when you have a disability, society has put it in a way that you cannot do all these things. But guess what? We'll get into further questions. So these are the normal expectations. These are the views of people, beliefs. And then when you have a disability, they believe that you cannot come up to that standard. And therefore, our culture has really, really had an influence or shaped the way we view with people with disability in a not so positive way. And we're going to talk about it more as we look at the other questions. So yes, culture has really shaped people's mindset of how we view disability.
Thank you, Dr. Cynthia. Wow, you've touched on very solid and truthful points because overall, there have been many case studies out there, and we all know that very well, right? That culture or our culture generally doesn't have that favorable view of disability in our society. So, Pastor Joy, we are privileged to have you. What's your take on this view in adding to Dr. Cynthia's comments?
I'll add a little bit to the body beauty and not being perfect. Our culture, around the world it is actually, so that we and when men looking for wives, they are looking for perfect women. And disability, the moment disability touches you, or affects you, you're considered not perfect. Your body beauty is gone, especially if you are, even if you are a beautiful person to look at. And it's a very sad thing. That's how people look at each other. And it shouldn't be that way. Because beauty is not just in our limbs. Beauty is also in our hearts. But I just want to add a little bit more to that. um, uh, different side of what Pastor Cynthia talked about. At this point, the culture, the nations at large have done an enormous amount of advocacy on behalf of disability community. And so they have tried to help people to come away from the culture that has affected people with disabilities in a negative way. They're trying. And some powerful decisions have been made on behalf of the individuals and family impacted with disabilities. Disability Act has been started in most nations, which provides various types of benefits, monthly financial support from the government, medical help for free treatment or cost-effective treatments, bus passes, train passes. Not all countries have all of it, but different countries have different benefits like that. Schools in the past did not accept children with disabilities in their schools, which is a very sad thing. But now, because of the Disability Act, the culture is changing, and the schools are supposed to accept children with disabilities and accommodate them to a certain level. And again, each country is a little bit different. Communities are to be inclusive of persons with disabilities. The culture has been so that children with disabilities are kind of shunned away a little bit or shut-ins. But that is changing very slowly. We want to see it change more drastically. Nevertheless, society at large is not educated what these acts mean. So the act has decided that people with disabilities should be helped. But we have not educated the society to accept that act first and include people with disabilities into their lives, into their communities, be an inclusive society. Individuals impacted with disabilities may qualify to receive these benefits, but not the families. Many families are not aware of it, especially in smaller towns, villages. That education is lacking. And because the society is not educated enough or encouraged to help people with disabilities, that makes it harder to receive the help from the community. Individuals impacted with disabilities can contribute positively to their community if we allow them. So, like we just talked about earlier, that they have lack of employment issue and all of that. But because we don't have inclusive society right now in many parts of the world, in many areas or in different countries, it makes it harder for people with disabilities to be successful or achieve much more than what we would like to see them achieve.
So Joy, I want to hold that thought, this topic there, because first of all, thank you very much for enlightening us and reminding us, specific to our U.S. culture or American culture here. But one of the things I'm going to boldly say I want us to tackle is, that view of from Africa, right? Like most
Yes.
African country, that is my culture. That is where I'm originally from. And I know in many parts, like in West Africa, the culture is not really favorable at all, right? That some of the things you mentioned, the Disability Act is non-existent, or even if there are efforts there, there's still a lot of work, if not miles and miles to go to reach that point. So I want us to shed a little light or thoughts focusing in
So
that aspect. Right,
may I add to that? So,
please.
yes, and you're from Ghana, I'm from India. And we have a lot of similarities, how people with disabilities are treated in our culture, especially in the villages. And Disability Act, though the government tries, or they have passed these rules, but it's not implemented as it's supposed to be. That's why people continue to suffer.
Thank you very much. So that's a solid point. The fact that it's not implemented as it's supposed to be. So
Right.
that's kind of going to lead me to the next question, which is, how do we know it's a problem? We've seen it in many ways. Here, back home, we've read stories, we've seen case studies. But as to the causes of these negative beliefs and perception regarding disability, is this something we can explain? What can we share with our audience, our viewers today, as to the causes of these negative beliefs, and that is impacting even the ability to implement these good programs or educating our society? Pastor Joy.
1 second, sir. So, in some cultures, let's put it point blank, Ghanaian culture,
Or West African or African
or West
in general,
African
right?
or Asian culture,
Right.
People believe that disability is a result of a bad karma, like
Dr. Cynthia.
Pastor Cynthia said, of the past life, or curse on the family, or some kind of witchcraft done on the family. So instead of finding out the medical diagnosis of the child's disability and what medical help is available, they continue to leave the matter alone, not do much about it because they look at the child as worthless child, basically. Provide the basic needs of the child, like feed the child, change seldom, and not much cuddling, affection, physical affection, talking to the child, or giving attention to the child, which prohibits the proper development of the child.
Okay.
And so that makes the disability become worse. So if the child was born with whatever disability, but here the child was able to speak, had the ability. But if you're not communicating with the child, if you're not showing that how the language is used, the child will never learn that.
Thank you. I think Dr. Cynthia, I see that you're ready. You want to?
Yes, so we're talking about the negative consequences of
Right.
the beliefs that people have as far as people with disability are concerned. One of the primary things is that because the basic thing is like if you have a disability is a result of something bad that had happened in the past. This results in the fact that if somebody has a disability in a family, the family is ashamed of that person. They don't want to bring that person in public because everybody is going to think that they have done something bad. And like Pastor Joy was saying, it adds on to the person's challenges. It doesn't make things better. Apart from being ashamed of the child and keeping the child or the person at home, in that case, it doesn't help the person to get the help or the medical maybe help that they need. Unlike maybe in the United States where the culture is a little bit open, the person can go for physical therapy, speech therapy, music therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral therapy. All these things are there. But with the culture of we are ashamed of you, so first and foremost, we hide the person. Secondly, we don't obtain the necessary help that is needed for the person with disability. And then thirdly, the reason why they keep you is that, they are afraid that people in that family may not even get future prospects, like when it comes to marriage, because it's like, oh, if that family has somebody who has a disability, if even there's a person without disability in that family, if I go and marry from that family, how do I know that that person is not going to give birth to a child with disability? So the negative impact, it's just continues on and on and on. And so at the end of the day, the negative impact is that people with disability are totally shunned to the background. They are discriminated against. They don't get the fair opportunity. But rather, imagine like Pastor Joy was saying, that we accept the situation that this is what it is, and we seek help for the person. We start advocating for the person. Things are going to turn around, and a lot of people are now going to come out openly, even if they have a child with disability, because they know that there is a future for the person. They know that there is something the person can do economically to contribute to society. They know that the person can grow, marry, and have children. I mean, our sister Lena is not here. Sister Lena has a physical talent. She is married. I know so many people who have disabilities. They are married. They have healthy children. They are enjoying their homes and everything. So I believe that the negative consequences are there. But like we're going to talk about later on, when we decide to combat the stigma and begin to work on it and begin to see them as they are, full personhood, right? As they are, not just, the whole thing has to do with, when we're going to talk about the positives, but the whole thing is, if somebody has a disability, right, I'm looking at Pastor Joy, I see her as a full human being. My focus or my attention is not on her limbs. Our focus is on Pastor Joy. This is who she is.
That's right.
And we love her, we accept her, and we appreciate her. The negative aspect is that you are looking at Pastor Joy. Why would you want to look at the disability? So your focus should not be on the challenge. Your focus should be on the person. When we have that mindset, it's going to take away that negative influence and that negative impact that comes with the negative beliefs that we have. Thank you.
Just want to add to that. The reason, like you said, the focus should be on the person, not the disability. That's part of the reason we prefer to use the term person with disability, not disabled person.
Exactly.
So the focus is not on disability, focus is on the person. And it's disability is there. It makes, so in my case, it limits me in many different ways. I depend on help. I depend on my chair. But I do things differently than you would do. So we do have, see, that's the sad side. We look at person with disability that they have no abilities, which is not true. We do have abilities. We use those abilities in a different way than you would use or someone else will use.
Great.
Thank you. I'm really enjoying this, and I think it's a real blessing, to have to know of the great work we're doing in this regard. I know, Pastor Joy, you're doing a lot of good work. We may hear one or two things. I know Dr. Cynthia has been doing fantastic work as well with the Shining Star. I bought into that vision myself. I'm humbled to be part of it. So we have work to do. I think we have work to do as society, as people, as persons, as accountable to each other, where we should make sure all of us can see people with disability for who they are, not just for their disability, as you are saying. So thank you very much. Again, I want to remind our viewers, if you have any question, please post it on the platform. I'm looking at it, and thank you for the likes and the engagement. I want to shift to another question that is related to our topic for today, which is the consequences. I think Dr. Cynthia mentioned that just now. So we know that there's stigma, there's discrimination, there are physical abuse in some cases, there are, other abuses that, not to be so detailed, that are people with disability are facing in their culture, in society, mostly back home. Again, I'm exposed to that African aspect, so we want to hear a little bit from you. What insight can you give us as to, what is driving these consequences, these false beliefs and about disability, right?
Okay, so one of the first things that come to mind is that people are of the view or the beliefs, this is all the cultural aspect, that people with disability deserve pity. And that is very wrong. People with disability don't deserve pity. If you say people with disability deserve pity, in other words, you are trying to say that there is something wrong with you, and it means that for the rest of your life you are going to be sad. But like we said, the focus is not on your limitation or your challenge. The focus should be on the person's ability, because the person who has a disability or person with disability, focus is not upon her or his disability. Assuming that I have a disability, that I'm blind, I cannot see, right? I haven't been seeing before. So what makes you think that I know the difference between having full sight, enjoying and seeing, and then not having sight? Right from the beginning, I didn't have any sight to deal with. And that is my life. But God's goodness, there are ways and means that I can go about my life and live a very fulfilling life. So the person coming from outside is like, oh, I'm so sorry for you, you are blind. But you are like, I can't even define what blind is, because this is who I am. So besides my blindness, I can be able to eat, I'll be able to walk, I can go to school, I'm being taught Braille and all those things. So first and foremost, we want people to understand that don't look at them with pity, because that is not the way they feel. They are happy for themselves. Sometimes as a parent of a child with special needs, you'll be like, oh, what is my child's future going to be? No, the child is content in what they have. What you have to do is that, what can I do to make the best out of the situation for her to live a very happy life, instead of you feeling sad or you feeling pity for the person. Sometimes people are like, oh, okay, and they are not, I talked about the other negative aspect is like, can they ever live a fulfilling life? Excuse me, what are you talking about? They are some of the most happiest people on earth. Let me give you a practical example. I think 2 years ago, my daughter was graduating from high school. So all those high school activities where they have to go for prom, and they have a whole lot of activities before their graduation. And so as a parent, I went with her, and she was all dressed, looking very beautiful. And she has a class, and I was part of the parents, and we went, and they were having a wonderful time. For a second, you think you are in your own world. Nobody is judging you. Nobody is comparing you. We took beautiful pictures. We were high-fiving ourselves. We are having like a dinner-like kind of situation. And then after that, they boarded the bus. They joined the school, the children who are able-bodied. and they all went for the prom. I don't know where was it the planetarium somewhere in Chicago downtown, and she had a ball. So somebody is thinking back and it's like, can she be happy? Can she have a fulfilled life? Yes, people with disability are very happy. They have a fulfilling life. So just because you do things a certain way and they do things a certain way doesn't mean that because they don't do things your way doesn't make them happy. They are very happy and they are very, very fulfilled lives. And then some of the assumptions, the negative assumptions is that people with disability are in constant pain. No, they are not in constant pain. They are doing very well. Just like you are healthy and you go about your business, they are also healthy and they go about their business. Their disability is not their focus. Their disability does not define them. What defines them is that they are full human being. They are full people, spirit, soul, body, as I always put it. And so just as sometimes you get sick and you need the care of a physician or a doctor, people with disability also sometimes get sick and they have the need to go to the hospital. They are not constantly in pain. They are not constantly suffering. So that kind of mindset that, oh, if you have a disability, you are constantly in pain, you are constantly suffering, these are the negative impacts. And I believe that if we decide to take off that veil and begin to see them as they are, you're going to really admire them. And what I really like was how Pastor Joy introduced me to the fact that they are specially abled. Don't look at their disability. Look at their abilities. And when you look at their abilities, their disability will fade away. You will not even see them as people with disability. You just see them as another normal, regular, able-bodied person. I know you wanted to add on, otherwise I can go on and on. I have so much to talk about. Yes. You add later. Okay. Another point I also wanted to talk about is that people say, oh, people with disability are wheelchair bound. And I remember Sister Lena expounding on that. You know, let me read this statement. It says, unfortunately, people with disability typically do not view themselves as confined to their wheelchair. In the same way, a person without disability is not described as confined to their car. So also, a person with disability is not supposed to be confined to their wheelchair. A wheelchair, like an automobile, is a form of mobility that contributes to the person's dependence. So when you see somebody who has a disability in a wheelchair, they are not confined to it. Just as we ride cars, we ride trains to enhance our movement around, their wheelchair also helps them to have mobility. And that is all that there is to it. You know, some also say that, oh, if you have a disability, you are very bold, you are brave, you are strong, you are all that, you know. And I just want to quote one young man as I was researching, and he wrote, he said that people with disability are often portrayed as superhumans and courageous as they triumph over their adversity. It's not an adversity, it is who they are. It is part of who they are. So he said this stereotype puts a lot of pressure on disabled people to be cheerful, accepting, and ready to make most of their condition. This impairment gives disabled persons the chance to exhibit virtues that they did not know they had and teach the rest of us patience and courage. You know, so this is how people view that. Oh, if I see that you have a disability and you are going about your activities, you are doing well, you are very brave. No, just as you also go to church, she also wants to come to church. So just because she has a disability and she's coming to church doesn't make her any braver or bolder or stronger. It's her normal life. It's a regular routine. It's like somebody with a disability gets a PhD and everybody says, oh, wow, she has a disability and she got a PhD. What? her disability does not hinder her from getting an education. So we want that kind of mindset. We want that kind of communication to gradually cease. Because if you see the person as a whole person, just like I can get a PhD, somebody with special needs can also get a PhD, and that doesn't make the person any braver or stronger than I am. This is who they are, and let's begin to see them. So this person wrote, he said, George Covington, a writer who is blind, once said that we are seen as inspirational, and inspiration sells like hotcakes. My disability isn't a burden, having to be so damned inspirational. He said this stereotype doesn't allow for people to have complex emotion and sees disabled people as being different rather than the ordinary. So this person is blind, and she goes about doing everything that he can, and everybody says, oh, you inspire me so much because you are blind, and yet you can do this. And please don't see him as blind. This is all that we are asking. See me as a human being. Blindness is part of me. Just as you can see, and the person with disability who cannot see, I don't say that, oh, wow, because you can see, oh, and you were able to do that. No. You can see, that is who you are. I can't see, this is who I am. You can see, and you can do certain things. I can't see, and I also do certain things. There are ways and means that I can get those things accomplished, just as you can also get certain things accomplished. So don't make life look like, oh, I have to work harder, or I have to take an extra effort to get certain things done. There are things available for me to do to get my life easy, enjoyable. Just like there are ways and means you also get things together to make your life meaningful and enjoyable. So these are some of the few things that I want to talk about. And then the next question I'm going to address, otherwise I'll be the only person talking again and again.
No, that's fine, Dr. Cynthia. Thank you. I think we're having a good time. We need to really make time to communicate some of these points to our audience, and it's part of our effort, right, to combat this stigma. So thank you. There was an article that from the United Nations. They conducted some studies in Africa. I like one of the comments a sister posted on the platform. The first one, in fact, she said that in Africa we need help. So I want to shift a little bit in that direction to talk about solutions. So in that articles, basically they're talking about some measures, right? Some measures which should be tailored to address the specific issues we're talking about, disability and culture. And they made some recommendation as to empowering people with disability. I know you've both touched on that. Developing community-based sensitizations and education campaigns, implementing school-based disability and right awareness programs. So I know very well that Shining Star has, last year, for example, Dr. Cynthia, you were in Ghana, right? You were in many places. You did some great work. So can you please as we shift into talking about
what the measures
right, the measures, can you give us some light, and we'll hear from Pastor Joy as well. Thank you.
Okay, so I have this article. It talks about the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom, and also the UN Convention on Rights of Persons with Disability. And this is the charter that they put in place, that first and foremost, we must promote acceptance. We must promote integration. We must promote inclusion. And we must educate the mainstream society. So promotion of, first and foremost, the acceptance is the big deal. When we are able to accept people as they are and not their disability. Okay, so like I'm saying, I have a child who has autism. My focus should not be on the autism. My focus should be, I have a beautiful 20-year-old daughter who is now in school. She's learning a trade, and I'm looking forward for she getting a very beautiful employment and living a very successful life. I'm looking forward to the day she will get married. I'm looking forward to having grandchildren from my daughter. Just as I see my older daughter, who also does not have any form of disability, I have expectations for her. She's going to finish her grad school. She already finished her grad school. I'm looking forward she's getting a job. I'm looking forward she marrying and having children. So the two of them, I don't see them any different. And whatever efforts I put towards they achieving their goals and becoming successful in life, that is the same effort I put in with my daughter who has autism. Just that her path may be a little bit different from my other daughter. So we want the society and we want everybody to come to that point that embrace people who have disability. Don't look at them based on their disability. Look at them as whole human beings. There are certain things that they will do differently. Their level of understanding, like let's say somebody who has an intellectual disability, right? Their level of understanding may be a little bit different. It takes a longer time for them to process. Those with intellectual disability, like autism, we have the whole spectrum. You know, some people, you just teach them one, and then they get it. And then some others, they would not, especially if they have to read and understand. They have challenges with all emotions and on. You know, but they have a path to be successful in life. And so when I look at you, maybe I'm looking at you, Pastor Roland, right? I don't think about your path. All I know is that, oh, you had a bachelor's and you just completed your master's in business administration. This is the way I see you, right? So if you see that somebody who has a disability, don't let the focus be on their disability. Let the focus be on, oh, Pastor Joy, how are you? How was work today? How are your clients? You know, those are the things. Don't focus on their disability. When we come to that point, then it means we have accepted them for who they are. And that is where we want community and society and everyone's attention to shift to. Don't look at my disability. Look at who I am. When we begin to accept them, when we begin to embrace them, don't start seeing somebody coming maybe in a wheelchair and all of a sudden it starts running to your mind. Then you're staring. What did she do? No, it's a person coming. Just as you walk through the doors and you come and sit down, she also has a mobile wheelchair and then drives it, and then she comes to sit down. So gradually, when we disabuse our minds based on looking at what their challenge is, rather than looking at them, I believe that it will go a long way. So that is the acceptance. And then the integration, we have to come to a point that, you know what, just like we are sitting here, I'm not different from her. He's not different from her. If Sister Lena is here, she's not different from me, right? We should be able to integrate, you know, but the challenge has been, unfortunately, that we are rather the ones who are putting the limitations on them, not their challenge, because there's a way around their challenge. But when we see them and we begin to focus on their disabilities, straight away we are putting a huge limitation on them. So we have to find a way to integrate. I want to give a practical example. Yesterday, as I was trying to write my notes, I was just looking at this big picture. It's like you have children in a school, right? And maybe they are going to take part in a spelling competition somewhere, maybe out of state or something. And you realize that maybe one child who has maybe a physical challenge, she's very smart. She can spell everything. But when it comes to selecting the people who are supposed to go and represent the school, then the school will start thinking about, oh, if we include this person who has a physical challenge, it means that we have to make special arrangements on the bus for her. We have to make special arrangements on the plane. We have to make, and so as a result of that, they bypass the person, you know, And that is very, very, very sad. So right now, it's not the person's disability that is hindering him or her from being part of the team that is representing the school from what? The finals. But it's rather the school or the people or the society that is putting limitation on what the person can do. And this is exactly this is just a simple example. When you come to the workplace for hiring, it is the same thing. You just realize that you interview this person who has special needs, but the person is so good, But society has it like, especially back home in Africa, the school that I'm working with, Yomba Special School, we are teaching the children how to learn how to make, craft wares and everything. But the challenge is after they've learned all those things, who is going to hire them? Because the various shops or stores or the people who have to hire them is like, if we put somebody who has a disability in front of our store, people will not come to our store. So right now you realize that the problem is not the person who has a disability. It's the mindset of the people without disability concerning that limits the person from getting a gainful employment, and on and on and on. So acceptance, integration, and then the inclusion of people with disability. This is the main UN Convention Charter that was put across. And then there are other points, but I want to give Pastor Joy an opportunity to talk. And then if there are other things I have to add to it, I'll do so.
So just what you were talking about, that problem is not with the person with disability. Problem is in the community, how we look at the person, or sometimes the family. And I'll give you a couple of examples from my own life. I grew up in the same culture, Pastor Roland, that you were talking about, that people are not given much, people are not encouraged, people are not, like in Ghana, people with disabilities, they don't have. I grew up in exactly the same culture. Schools wouldn't accept me. I was the only person with disability who people could see. All of the neighbors' kids who had disability were shut-ins. And they didn't go to school. But my parents wanted to send me to school, and the schools wouldn't accept. So then they started teaching me at home. Because when there's a will, there's a way. So they started teaching me at home. And finally, in 8th grade, that's when one school accepted me. So it may take time, but if we don't give up on our children, grandchildren, siblings, and keep pushing them. My dad always pushed me for higher education, just like he pushed all of my siblings. I'm the youngest, so I saw him pushing the rest of the siblings. So that push is needed. Lack of acceptance in the community, that makes it harder for people like myself. But when the community encourages us, it makes it even better. A lot of things I learned in my life, not through my parents, but because my neighbors learned from my parents and they encouraged me. And I learned cooking from my neighbors. My mom was afraid of letting me near the stove. And my neighbor would sneak me into her kitchen and let me cook.
That was a good neighbor, right?
Wow,
That was
awesome.
a very good neighbor. And I told her,
wow.
you're going to get in trouble with my mom. And she said, she put her little daughter at the door, and she says, when Mama comes, let me know. And she said, Mom, Mama's coming. And she came in, picked me up, stove, and got in front of the stove. Later on, she let her taste what I had cooked.
And I'm sure it was delicious.
From then on, I could cook. she would let me near the stove. So that's kind of encouragement we need to give to the people in community who have limitation. We all have limitation. People who are not labeled disabled, they also have limitation. So I'm sure all of our limitations are different, but we all have limitations. And we learn different ways to do things. And it's what you were talking about, Pastor Cynthia, is the stigma that's in the society has been there for a long time. And what is stigma? It's just a little negative mark, not because of our disability, not because of our illness, but because the society puts it on us. People put it on us. And we need to make sure that we change that view. We need to encourage the people with disabilities emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, give the help that they need, and so they can develop in the way we all need to develop. People with disabilities, children with disabilities need to develop in the same manner that children with no disabilities need to develop. And they need the same kind of encouragement.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Joy. I love your story. It's simple, but yet true. It has a lot of things to it. And I wish we have more of that neighbor that you had, right? Who
right.
was sneaking you in and out. I really like that story. So it shows that inclusion. Some of the things we're talking about, you show the desirable people that we want to build in our society. That won't have that stigma in mind. That won't be driven by some of the challenge that you, as a person with disability, may have faced, but more of that beautiful and potential best chef. I'm sure you've become, or you're cooking now. So
I love to cook, even now.
That is great. That is
develop
great.
them.
Right. Thank you for sharing that story. I really enjoyed that. Dr. Cynthia, I know you're smiling as well.
Yes, so to add to what we can do to take away the negative stigma, apart from the acceptance and the integration, we also want to promote rehabilitation. Okay, we want to promote education. We want to promote that people with disability can also marry, they can have children, and they can have very, very fruitful lives. And one of the most important things, and I take it from Pastor Joy, that her parents did, that when no school was going to take her parents decided to do what? Teach her by themselves. So to every parent out there, you have to have a vision and a goal for your family member or your child who has a disability. Promote them, get them educated, whatever it takes, and always, advocate for them. Gradually, the society is opening up, and what a beautiful neighbor that you had. If all of us can become like that beautiful neighbor, I don't think that stigma will ever be there.
They learned from my parents that because my parents were encouraging me, so they could see that they should be encouraging me too.
That is very great. And then for some of the parents, we have to educate and counsel them, because like some of the disabilities, they have so many different causes. I can't even begin to enumerate them, but when they are educated on what caused this, maybe something went wrong or whatever, when they understand, they'll get to the point to understand that, it's not because I've sinned. Even we Christians, in the Word of God, when somebody was blind and Jesus was about to heal, people were asking, the same society hasn't changed. Does this man sin or does the parents say? Jesus said it doesn't have anything to do with the parents. It's that the name of God must be glorified. So that aspect that, maybe they sinned or they did something, let's put those kind of mindset away. Get the parents to be educated, counsel the parents for them to know that something great, I don't even say good, but something great will come out of this child. So give the child your best shot. And like I said, when you, the parent, or you, the family member, decide to do so, like her neighbors, other people will start picking up and learning. But you, the parent, when you decide to shun the child, when you decide to hide the child, when you don't want to talk about the child's disability, guess what? You are encouraging what the society is doing, and you are encouraging that stigma. So we need education first and foremost for the parents, for the immediate family, to encourage them, to accept them, and then also I believe that there's so much lack of awareness. That is one of the main things I personally want to bring to light, especially in West Africa. When I had the privilege to go to the northern part of Ghana, I had opportunity to sit with over 100 parents, and I was telling them that I have a child with special needs. So they were like, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, "Yes, but I'm not ashamed of her." That is the reason I'm here to tell you that if I'm not ashamed of my child, you should also know. So when we have that education piece going on out there, when the parents are educated, the society is educated, it will take away the negativity and it will take away the stigma, And one of the main things that I have written here is that disability culture or culture of disability should be included as one of the many cultures addressed in cultural competencies. Most of us who have been through school or been through the educational system, most of the time we are taught about cultural competencies. Maybe as a physician, how you have to relate to people as far as their cultural background is concerned. Maybe they need an interpreter, they need this, they need that. These cultural competencies, I believe one of them should be disability culture. Now, that is what is coming up. We have something called disability culture, where people who have disability have now come together, and saying that this is how we go through society. Even though we are being looked down upon us, we are not accepting it. We are doing our best to be fruitful, to be happy, to be impactful, and everything else. And what can be done to help this and to help the general public? So I believe that disability culture should become one of the cultural competences, and it should be included in every curriculum. I have a PhD. I have gone through the whole educational system, maybe the courses that I took, but never have I come across any class. I did sociology, I did economics and all that, but, I never came across a class or something that even addressed disability culture. Maybe I'm old school, or maybe...
There are some places they have a lot of classes that are started on disability issues, but not quote-unquote culture, even though some of the culture comes between the disability classes or disability awareness classes. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Johnny and Friends Ministry, and they have worked along with many Christian colleges to bring make disability classes or classes on disability issues part of their curriculum. And some of them are actually offering disability as major, because universities were doing that. I had that. But Christian colleges didn't have it. And now they do because of their hard work. And they prepare the curriculum, Johnny and Friends. So
that is great. So the disability culture, I was looking for the definition. It simply is people with disabilities have forged a group identity. We share common history of oppression and a common bond of resilience. So even though they are being oppressed, they have that resilience to overcome. They have also generated art, music, literature, and other expressions of our lives and our culture, infused from our experience of disability. Most importantly, We are proud of ourselves as a people with disabilities. We claim our disabilities with pride as part of our identity. So this is the summary of what this disability culture that is coming up is. Accepting who they are. I think you have to accept yourself first, take pride in it, and then others will also follow suit and then accept that. So this culture, I believe, should come out. A lot of people come to embrace it, and then with that, this negative stigma and everything hopefully will fade away.
Like you were talking earlier, people with disabilities not sitting sad all the time. It reminds me of all these years. I had disability at the age of 4 months, but I don't remember really any time where I was sitting crying over my disability. Not because I was so strong, but because the way I was raised, the way my parents and family encouraged me, the way the neighbors learned to encourage me, and disability, my personal disability is the last thing.
Thank you very much. These are important, solutions that some are already in place. It's good to share those with our viewers. It's good to share those with, society, right, with others. One of the things I've learned in my readings is also, influencing or helping undertake laws and policies, right, reforms, efforts that will combat those stigmas. So the work is cut out. We have a lot of work to do in our society, in our cultures where we come from. And but I believe we are part of the solution. I know you guys are doing a great job with your various ministries, the Specially Able Ministry, right, and Shining Star, and also the Oasis Specially Able Ministry. So any final thoughts that you want to share? Today's been really rich. Our viewers have been enjoying themselves. Paulina, John, many people have just been affirming and just sharing or discussing with us. So thank you all to all our viewers. We appreciate you being interested and being invested in what we're doing here with this panel. But I want to give us an opportunity to, what would be our final thought, or what do we want to share? What's the key takeaway? The problem is there in our African culture, or like Pastor Joy shared, in India, all over the places. We thank God so much for the United States of America with the Disability Act, and also in various places of the world where those acts are already in place. They need to be reinforced. But what do we want to share with our audience as to our final thought, some of the things we're doing, and so on?
I just want to share a little experience that I've had working with people with disabilities. I have met many young girls with disabilities who were not allowed to go to any happy events. Now, we're going back to a little bit earlier what we were talking about, how the society treats event in the community because of the fear that they will bring back bad luck. But then they had the opportunity, they were given the opportunity and encouraged to go through college, go through schooling, go through vocational training, and they excelled. They tremendously excelled. And not only that made them independent, but their families were helped greatly through them. So I just want to say that we know that life with disability is not easy. I don't want you to think that. It is hard, but it's not all negative. There are exceptions to all of these things that we are talking about, because when the proper encouragement, proper support, proper education is given, we excel. So our goal in the society has to be to provide and find ways to provide that. And it may not happen all at one time, but even with one person at a time, if we can educate, we need to do that. So, like when I travel, it's a challenge, to say the least. I have to fight at every person at the airport, literally fight, not fight, but you know what I mean. And basically, I have to show them that I need this help because I have this limitation. And they want to go by the book. But when I reinforce over and over, they come back and help, and they come back and say, thank you for including me. I learned something that I never expected to learn today. So and my professor always said that I teach sometimes or educate people one person at a time. So if that's all we have to do, then we need to do that. If we can train the mass crowd, then we do that. So however we can do, we need to continue to provide the training, provide the awareness, provide the encouragement around our community can excel.
Thank you, Pastor Joy. That is a great closing statement, and there's not even much more to add to it. So, bottom line is that let's all put aside the stigma, the stereotypes, begin to accept, begin to educate ourselves and educate the people around us. I'm hoping that this discussion panels that we have been having is at least making a headway with one person. Like you said, one person at a time. We getting to know and we getting to understand that those who have disabilities are full human beings and they have special abilities. They are no different than us because each and every one of us have our own limitations in different ways. But just as we find ways around to move forward, let us encourage these ones. Let us accept these ones. Let's include them in everything that we do. And I believe that life will be better for all of us at the end of it all. Thank you for watching us, and I believe that you have been blessed.
Yes, I've been blessed. I'm sure the viewers have been blessed. And it's a blessing, if not a privilege, to have a community of supporters, sticking with us through this discussion panel. Thank you all so much. Like both Dr. Cynthia and Pastor Joy have mentioned, we start with one person at a time, one family at a time, or one parent at a time, one community, one church at a time. And we want to continue advocating and helping affirm the rights of people with disability. I look forward to the upcoming sessions when the time is right. I know we'll have many good topics, right?
I think we can let them get a little snippet so their ears will be ready for us for the next time.
That's right. And we've tried to stay around the culture, but we'll dive it into the churches, right? Disability and the church. So we have a lot of work, and most of us are part of church or religious institution. So we're going to be talking about that, and it's going to be very, very interesting. Isn't that right? Yeah, absolutely. So, before we close, I want to remind all our viewers, if you want to connect between now and our next session, please, you can reach out on our Facebook page under the ShinningStar.org. Shining Star is with 2 N, SHINNING, Shining Stars. Inc. is a non-for-profit 501c registered. We encourage your donation, your support, being part of the solution, right? Being part of the solution. So thank you all. Continue sharing this discussion panel and continue being the advocates with us. But we won't end without giving a special thank you to our special guest today, Pastor Joy Mull. Thank you so much for bringing value and to our discussion, but most importantly for all that you've been doing to advance and combat this stigma in many ways that I cannot enumerate. So thank you very much, Pastor Joy.
Thank you for inviting. And let's continue to do as much advocacy as we can.
That's right. So with that said, thank you all our audience. With the COVID-19 pandemic, we wish you all safety in mind, safety first, social distancing and all the other measures. Until we meet next time, thank you all and have a good time. Thank you.
The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. As we receive, we agree. Amen.
Favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family and your children and their children and their children.